Hello and welcome to this very special episode of the GCast. I'm Ninja, your host, and will always be your host. I can't stop hosting, host. And who are our youth?
I am Paradox of Paradox Multimedia.
And that's it. Because we only have two people, because we can't find a third. Now, Paradox, you've done something special recently.
Yeah, I came out with an album called Unison on August 14th.
Congratulations. And if you couldn't tell, this whole thing is an interview for that, so he can get publicity and grow big boy.
Okay.
Right, Paradox?
If you say so.
Alrighty, so would you like to describe the album to the viewers? Tell them what it's about.
Well, the album is kind of just like a collection of songs that, while different, work really well together, which kind of goes with the idea of unison, being kind of united despite, differences, I guess.
So it's political?
Not necessarily, no. It's more like, if you want to be very, I guess, if you really want to look into it that much, it's more like a thing that, hey, people are different, but we're all human.
Huh, cool. So, which one's your favorite song on the album?
That's a tough one. I would say it's either between Alteria and Stand in Unison. Which, funnily enough, Alteria was the first track I made for the album, and Stand in Unison was the last one that I made.
So you hate the middle children?
I don't hate them. I don't hate them. Don't go and make that like this. It's just, I really enjoyed working on them. Not to say I didn't enjoy working on the other tracks, Clubhouse, Perspective, Take a Seat, all of those, Operation Crank It, which was really fun to give a name to. But it's just I really enjoy listening to both of them, and I feel like both of them had the most show of growth in my music ability.
Cool. So how'd you make this music? Did you get an orchestra, or?
I made it using Magic's Music Maker with a combination of MIDI and pre-recorded samples.
Oh, okay. So you made this all by yourself? Was there any outside help or no?
Yeah, this was kind of a solo thing.
Okay, so
I do have another album coming in hopefully the next month. It was more of a collaboration that I did the music for, but I can't really say much about that because we're still trying to get things finalized.
Under DMCA stuff, yeah.
Well, there wasn't really a DMCA. It's just more out of respect for the other artist. I don't want to say anything until they're ready for it to be publicly spoken about.
So what song took the longest, may I ask?
Ooh, that would probably be Stand in Unison. Stand in Unison, I got to the first drop, and I didn't really know what to do. Just getting the drop itself was very difficult, and then figuring out where to go from there, and that's partially why it's as long as it is, which is almost 5 minutes long, as because I was trying to see what would work, and in the end it all worked, but it ended up being the longest song on the album as a result.
So, by going with that, what was your inspiration for Stand in Unison? Because it's personally my favorite song in the album. What inspired you to go with all that stuff? Unison, Stand in.
It's kind of weird because for me, I'm inspired by all the music I listen to, and I listen to a lot of different music. I listen to metal, I listen to electronic, lo-fi, I just listen to so many different kinds of music because I don't feel like I need to be inspired by a particular kind of music to make music, just most music kind of inspires me. This was kind of based off of my desire to make a, like, really high, maybe not really high quality, because I'm not entirely sure how high quality, like, professionals would say it is, but I always wanted to nail a drop in a dubstep track, and well, I kind of did that in a track a while back. That was a collaboration with Paul Capricorn, New Atmosphere. I feel like I was able to execute it a lot better in the song and just overall get a much better grasp on a dubstep track than I've ever been able to do.
Huh. Interesting. So, which song did you, like, took the shortest amount of time to develop?
Definitely Alteria. Alteria was like a one-day thing. I just kind of did it in one. It's like, oh, this is great. And then I made the original video for it, and that took about another day, I believe, because I was really busy the day I was trying to edit it all together.
So you didn't put your heart and soul in Alteria, is what I'm hearing.
Not necessarily. I mean, the thing about music is not, it doesn't really matter how long it takes. It matters, like, what it sounds like in the end, I guess. Because, like, you can work for a month on a track and it will sound like absolute garbage. Or you can spend, like, 10 minutes on a track and it will be, like, the best thing you've ever made. So it really depends on, like, what you're working with, how creative you're feeling, like, in the time, and there's a lot of factors that go into, like, how long it takes to make a track, how well it sounds, because you've got to take into effect the mixing and mastering of all the different sounds together, considering all the different aspects of those and how it works together, and just, like, there's a lot that goes into music making that you wouldn't really think of until you actually get into it, and it's like, oh, wow, there's so many things that could either make or break this single track.
So you're calling me stupid?
I'm not calling you stupid. I'm just saying, like,
yeah, I know.
Most people, like, they might think, like, oh, I know a lot about music. I played an instrument in high school or something. And it's like, okay, but have you ever tried combining it with other instruments? Have you ever tried, like, making, writing composition and putting it all together and, like, being the one orchestrating it all?
Never thought about that. So, how many emotional breakdowns did you have while making this album? Was it 12?
None, actually. That's something I've never really struggled with, really, in the creative process.
So you're emotionally stable.
For the most part, I'd like to think so.
Huh. That's a double-edged sword, you know.
It can be.
Because, like, then you won't have the breakouts that will get you into stardom, but then you won't have the breakouts that will get you out of stardom. You're like the anti-Shia LaBeouf. How does that feel?
That's a weird way of describing it, but I guess I'll go with it.
How does it feel?
Good. I just took a drink from my water bottle. It feels weird, I guess.
So, was there any method to your madness on, like, where you placed each song in relation to another one on the album?
I felt like Alteria was a great way to start because, one, it was the first track and it just had a lot of energy, a good way to get listeners pumped up. And then Gaia and Raindrop just kind of, like, slowed the roll down a bit to make way for Take a Seat, which was the first real lo-fi hip-hop track I had ever successfully made, and then kind of bringing it back up again with Perspective, and then Clubhouse, Operation Crank It, get the energy flowing again so that you stay interested, and then cooling down a bit once again with Lounge, or no, not Lounge, Lobby, before finally going in to the finale with Stand in Unison, and then kind of like a calm, I guess, bit of reflecting with 1 in 1,000.
Interesting. That's actually That's actually more in depth than I was expecting, in all honesty.
I just made it sound like I put
it's
a lot
cool.
more thought into it than I actually did, but that's kind of like the process that was going through my head a little bit, however unconsciously, when I was deciding which tracks would work best before and after each other.
So why'd you go with names like Alteria and Gaia, and then the rest all have kind of simple names, except for Operation Crank It? Like, was there any reasoning for that?
Operation Crank It, I was having a hard time thinking of a simple name for. And I've always had trouble with coming up with names that make sense. Like in the case of Raindrop, that makes sense because you get that little bit of a drip sound effect all throughout the track, and that kind of makes sense. And Alteria, because it's kind of like whimsical and seems to like just be an out of this world thing, which Alteria is a word that's kind of fits that ideal. But Operation Crank It, it kind of stood out from the rest of the tracks because I used a little bit of a different method with making it, and I guess I just thought that because of that, like, just because it was so different, like, it had that kind of quality that like just makes you want to turn it up and jam to it. So that's kind of where Operation Crank It came from.
Nice. Also, I'd like to point out, Alteria, I completely get what you're going for. I didn't realize that's an actual word. I just know the Pokemon Alteria.
I mean, that was a little bit of it, and that's why I spelt it the way I did, because I didn't want people to be like, oh, so this is inspired by the fluffy blue bird Pokemon. Like, no. I can understand the misconception.
Yeah. What about Gaia? You never went into that one. That's one I'm actually very curious about.
That one just felt like a kind of, I guess, down-to-earth track, I guess is the best way I can describe it. And Gaia has always been a word I thought was interesting because it's been used in fiction to depict multiple different things. Like in Percy Jackson and the Olympians, it's used in the Greco-Roman mythology sense, I guess, of representing the goddess of Earth. And like in Sonic the Hedgehog, I believe, where there was the dark Gaia and light Gaia, which were the spirits of the planet Mobius, or whatever. Like, just...
So
it's always seemed interesting to me, and combining that with the interesting sort of hip-hop beat, and how down-to-earth it seemed, that's why I chose Gaia as a name for it.
So would you say that it's a lot tougher to name songs whenever there aren't lyrics in them, from your experience, or?
It can be difficult to name a song when there isn't much of a basis to go off of, such as having lyrics to it, because music is by itself kind of abstract, and trying to think of a name, whether it's a phrase, a sentence, or just like a single word that you think embodies a single track, can be really difficult. Often when I'm making music, a track will go through multiple name changes before I finally pick one. Going back to New Atmosphere, the collaboration I did with Paul Capricorn, that went through multiple renames before I finally decided on New Atmosphere.
Interesting. So, what was your experience with the release of Unison? Was it like tough to get it out, considering you're all independent, or was it just like easy to go through because all these platforms are very accessible for new people?
I actually went through a service called DistroKid to help me distribute it, because in the past I had wanted to distribute my music, but trying to go through iTunes and Google Play and such by myself, trying to figure out the hoops to jump through and everything, it was very difficult to figure out, especially since I didn't really have anybody to help me walk through it and to explain it to me. So DistroKid, actually, I signed up on there, paid their subscription fee or whatever, and I just told them, like, hey, I want it in these stores, and they're like, okay, we'll submit it, and in like a couple of days it ended up on the stores like in time for the pre-order, and then a week later I'd been waiting to get the notification about Spotify, and it happened like the day of Unison's release.
So when will we get the physical release of Unison?
There at this time are no plans for a physical release. That is something I'll have to definitely look into to see what kind of parameters there are for that and what that would mean for me, and like
it would probably cost a lot, in all honesty.
It would kind of depend on who you went through. There is a place I found called Disc Makers that I've looked into a little bit, but at this time there are no plans for a physical release, though that's kind of up in the air.
Alrighty. So were any animals harmed in the making of this album, or was it just like all like yourself who you were harming, or was it humans? What were you harming to make this album? Is what I'm asking.
The only thing I would say what got harmed was my ears when making Take a Seat, because when recording music and like listening to it back in the program versus like on my phone or in my car, which I do use to test to see how music sounds before I decide, yeah, I'm done with this. Take a Seat, the electric piano, which is kind of like the little bell-like tune you can hear in it, that is extremely high-pitched and really loud in Music Maker, as opposed to when you listen to it through like just your headphones or whatever. So listening to that over and over again while trying to make sure I got the track exactly right did give me a bit of a headache, but I'm glad that nobody has reported the same thing happening to them while listening back to the track.
So it's not like Lavender Town with Pokemon, where kids apparently kill themselves over it.
I wouldn't say it's exactly binaural frequencies, but...
Okay. So I think we should get to wrapping it up soon. Any last words you would like to say about your album?
I am very happy to hear that it's been it's been positively received, and there is currently a new EP in the works. No title for it yet, but I'm planning about 5 or 6 tracks on it, and there might be a collaboration or 2 in there.
You said Old Town Road? Is it the Old Town Road EP?
I would like to keep remixes kind of separate from the original music, but there is that to look forward to as well.
Okay.
We'll get there, Ninja.
Well, yeah. Okay, so his album link to everything should be in the description, along with a link to his YouTube channel and a link to my Twitter, which you should be following. So follow me on Twitter.
Gotta get them bears.
Yeah, I stopped doing that because school got in the way. It's sad, right? The things society doesn't allow me to do.
We certainly live in a society.
We live in a society, Batman. So make sure you go like this channel, comment on the Reddit that we have, I'll make it, and subscribe, because I want to get to 100 subscribers.
And if you could, get me to
my
100
dream.
subs too, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, he's like 15
16.
away. 16 away. We don't care about numbers here. Just make sure you subscribe to us. So
we don't care about numbers, but subscribe.
Have a nice day, and make sure you follow me on Twitter. I was Ninja, and who was you?
Paradox of Paradox Multimedia.
Alrighty. Well, that is an episode.